My twin sister Clara and I are very different. She has always been naturally intelligent and kind, easily getting into a top school that everyone admired. I, on the other hand, developed a reputation for being difficult, often described as withdrawn and moody, and I had a habit of lying. After an incident where I injured someone, our parents sent me away to a special school meant for behavioral correction. Much later, while I was away, Clara became the target of severe bullying by a group of 17 other students, led by a girl named Olivia. The attack left her with devastating internal injuries, making it impossible for her to ever have children. The bullies reportedly joked afterwards that the cost of a meal could cover any compensation they might owe. When I learned what happened, I removed the tongue ring I wore, put on Clara's backpack, and decided to impersonate her, adopting her innocent demeanor to confront the people who had hurt her so badly. For once, our parents didn't try to stop me. The rules at the special school only permitted me to visit home once a month. I had been looking forward to this visit for a long time. As I walked towards Clara's room, I held a gift I had made for her during a craft session at school, a framed butterfly specimen. I imagined her reaction, picturing her happy and excited, maybe even jumping into my arms like she used to. But I never got the chance to give it to her. Instead, I was met with a shocking sight. Clara was lying unconscious on her bed. The white bed sheets were stained dark red with blood, which had soaked through and was dripping onto the floor. Her face, usually described as pretty and sweet, was swollen almost beyond recognition, looking puffy and distorted. Trembling, I carefully lifted the thin blanket covering her. Her school uniform underneath was also stained with blood. On her stomach, amidst other marks and scars, the word bitch had been crudely carved into her skin, the cuts deep enough to expose raw flesh. Clara was rushed to the hospital immediately. After examining her extensive injuries, the doctor's expression became very serious. He urged the nurses to hurry and begin emergency procedures without any delay. The door to the emergency operating room remained closed for many hours. Each time it opened briefly, it was only to deliver more bad news. My mother sat slumped in a waiting room chair, sobbing quietly. My father tried hard to remain composed, signing consent forms and other documents one after another, his hand shaking slightly. "What did we do wrong?" Mom cried softly. My sweet daughter. Eventually, the doctors came out, their faces showing exhaustion and defeat. "We did everything we could," the lead surgeon explained gravely, but her uterus was severely damaged, essentially shredded. There were also signs of burns, likely from some kind of heated metal object. The wounds contracted immediately, causing severe internal adhesions. We had to perform a hysterectomy to stop the bleeding. She won't be able to have children. He paused, taking a breath. If her recovery goes well, she will likely need to use colostomy bags for the rest of her life. If complications arise... My mother fainted upon hearing this. My father, overwhelmed, grabbed the doctor's arm, tears finally streaming down his face. "Please, doctor, save her. She's only 11 years old. She has her whole life ahead of her. She can't end up like this." The doctor simply closed his eyes and shook his head slowly, unable to offer any further hope or reassurance. Clara's phone, which I had picked up from her bedside table before we left for the hospital, buzzed in my pocket. Notifications kept popping up, like grim reminders of what had happened. I managed to unlock it using her birthday as the password. Inside, I found a group chat with 18 members, disturbingly named 17 Angels and Their Dog. The group seemed to be led by Olivia. They were repeatedly tagging Clara's username, taunting her even after the assault. Messages read, "Feeling good now? Need a guy? I can hook you up. Show off in class again, and I'll stab you every time I see you. Have our homework ready before class the day after tomorrow. Breakfast should be egg pancakes. Remember to add sausage, hot sticks, and chicken fillets. If it's cold when you bring it, I'll break your dog legs." Look, Olivia scared her silent. It became instantly clear what the group name signified. Olivia and her gang of 17 girls were systematically and cruelly bullying Clara, with a viciousness that seemed beyond their years. Tears streamed down my face as I read. I had always assumed Clara lived a bright, happy life, completely unlike my own troubled path. But it seemed her reality was even darker than mine. Unlike Clara, who was always obedient and well-behaved, I had been a difficult child. I performed poorly in school, sometimes stole money to spend time at internet cafes, and got into frequent fights, eventually leading to the incident where I seriously injured someone. Everyone knew my problems ran deeper, though. When I was 8, my parents had taken me back to our rural hometown for a while, hoping a change of environment might help me. But it seemed my difficult nature was ingrained. I overheard some elderly women from the village gossiping about me, saying my parents couldn't have a normal child and had birthed a freak instead. By sunset that same day, those women were found dead, their heads submerged in a manure pit, their tongues missing. No one ever found out exactly what happened. My mother, distraught, whipped my hand with a switch later, crying, "Why can't you just behave? No matter how angry you get, you have to control it. If you can't, don't call us your parents anymore." Clara had shielded me then, stopping the punishment. Mom eventually hugged us both, weeping. I had tried to moderate my behavior since then, becoming one of the quietest students at the special school. But now, reading those messages and seeing Clara's state, a storm of conflicting thoughts raged in my head. Eventually, one impulse overwhelmed the others. No more quiet acceptance, just deal with them. Clara was finally moved from the operating room to a regular hospital ward. She was alive, but fragile. My father made several phone calls, trying to report the incident and seek justice, eventually reaching the school principal, Mr. Harrison. Over the phone, the principal offered a half-hearted apology before quickly dismissing the severity of the situation. "The school's security cameras in that area seem to be malfunctioning," he claimed. "I checked the footage we have, and there's no clear sign of bullying. Don't worry too much, Mr. Davis. It was probably just some kids playing rough. Nothing serious. An apology from the students involved should suffice." My father exploded in anger. "Conveniently broken cameras? Are they really broken, or is your conscience broken? I told you my child was brutally assaulted, and you haven't even come to see her, yet you call it horseplay? Is this how your prestigious school handles these matters?" Unexpectedly, the principal sounded more offended than my father. "Mr. Davis, our students are exceptional, both academically and in character. Bullying is simply impossible here. Who's to say your daughter wasn't associating with troublemakers from outside the school and caused the problem herself? I kindly offered my assistance, and now you insult me? I have nothing more to say to you. Don't call this number again." The call ended abruptly. When my father tried calling back, the line was blocked. I found a picture of the principal online and studied his face, committing it to memory. If he ever ended up needing a colostomy bag himself, perhaps a simple apology from me would suffice for him too. Through the glass window of the ward door, Clara looked like a wilted flower, so different from her usual bright and cheerful self. Meanwhile, the group chat on her phone continued buzzing, the bullies apparently agitated by her silence. "Dumb bitch, still no reply? Is her skin itching for another beating? She's so annoyingly slutty, needs more discipline." Then, they started sharing videos of the assault, mocking Clara further. I forced myself to open one of the videos. In a secluded corner of the schoolyard, more than a dozen girls in school uniforms surrounded Clara, trapping her. A few held her down while Olivia casually strolled over, sucking on a lollipop. Then, Olivia backed up about 5 meters, ran forward, and forcefully stomped on Clara's head. There was a sickening thud as Clara's head hit the concrete pavement, bouncing slightly. She cried out in pain, clutching her head. The surrounding girls burst into laughter, seeming to find Clara's agony amusing. "Look at how happy she looks," one of them jeered. "Call me Daddy," Olivia demanded. "Come on, quick." Clara, unable to resist, mumbled "Daddy" while holding her head. "Slap! Who are you calling Daddy?" Olivia yelled, hitting her. With a voice choked with humiliation and fear, Clara whispered, "Olivia!" Olivia grabbed Clara's hair, twisting it painfully, her voice dripping with malice. "They say all the boys like you. Why don't you tell us just how pretty you think you are?" Clara shivered, terrified. "I'm not pretty. Nobody likes me." "You filthy thing. Just looking at you makes me sick," Olivia sneered. A heavier-set girl standing next to Olivia, who I later learned was named Jessica, took off her shoe and began slapping Clara across the face repeatedly, counting loudly and viciously. 12, 13, 14, 15. Look how swollen her face is. I'm almost too embarrassed to keep hitting her." She then delivered another hard slap. Clara's face was indeed severely swollen, her lips puffed up, and drool trickled uncontrollably from the corner of her mouth. She looked utterly broken. Amidst the chaos, I noticed a security camera mounted on the wall above them, its lens seemingly tracking their movements. The surveillance wasn't broken, it just hadn't protected Clara. But the torment wasn't over. A cruel glint appeared in Olivia's eyes. "Hey girls," she announced. "I've got an idea to make sure she never seduces any men ever again." The other girls exchanged sinister glances and then pinned Clara down more firmly. "No, no, please!" Clara cried, trying weakly to crawl away, pleading for help, but no one paid her any attention. Olivia took out a metal compass, the kind used for drawing circles, heated its sharp tip with a lighter, and approached Clara with a sadistic smile. After a piercing scream of pain from Clara, the commotion attracted the principal, Mr. Harrison. Clara must have thought she was finally being saved. But the principal merely glanced at the scene, then casually dismissed the group. "All right, girls, class is about to start. Head back to your classrooms now." Clara was left alone in the playground. I still couldn't understand how she managed to make her way home in that state. My parents eventually saw the video too. I had never seen them cry like that before, looking so utterly defeated. They had worked hard their entire lives, running an honest small business, and believed that sending Clara to the best school in the area was the most important investment they could make in her future. They never imagined that the school itself could be the place where she almost lost her life. When the police officers arrived at the hospital, my father clung to them as if they were his last hope. "Officer, is this video evidence? Can we press charges based on this?" The officer looked uncomfortable after learning the ages of the primary attackers. "Sir, I understand your feelings. Let me contact the parents of the girls involved." The saying, "like parent, like child," proved true. Even with police involvement, most of the parents were uncooperative and dismissive, some even hostile. The officer handling the case told us this wasn't unusual. They had encountered many parents of bullies who reacted this way, just as they had seen countless parents of victims try to seek justice from schools only to be shut down. Often these cases ended with a monetary settlement, quietly resolved. Sometimes the laws designed to protect minors seemed to function more effectively as shields for young offenders. My father was furious. "We might not have much money, but we are not letting this go. Why should assaulting my daughter be settled with money?" He spent the entire morning calling the parents of the girls identified in the video and group chat. Only a few answered, and their responses were appalling. "Kids joke around sometimes," one parent said nonchalantly. "You should consider yourself lucky we're not charging you for the little procedure my daughter accidentally performed on yours. Everyone bleeds sometimes, it's no big deal. She didn't die from it. Consider it a cleansing," said another dismissively. A third parent was openly aggressive. "Are you just trying to scam us for money? How much do you want? Name a price, but be reasonable, or I'll sue you for harassment. I'm a lawyer, you know." After consulting with a legal aid lawyer, my parents discovered that because the main attackers were all under 12 years old, they were unlikely to face any criminal charges. With so many girls involved, legal liability was diluted, making it difficult to hold any single individual significantly accountable. This legal reality seemed to be the source of their parents' audacity. My father was devastated. He had spent his life teaching Clara and me to be good, honest, patient people, to endure hardship without complaint. He never imagined his philosophy would lead to this outcome. He sat alone on the hospital stairwell, smoking one cigarette after another, weeping silently and occasionally hitting his own head against the wall, as if rejecting the very beliefs he had lived by. I found him there and whispered, "Dad, Clara can't be late for school. Let me go in her place." In the dim light of the stairwell, Dad looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen. After a long moment of silence, he slowly nodded, then deliberately extinguished his cigarette butt between his fingers, crushing the last ember. "I don't aim to teach people lessons. I aim to remake them." Back in Clara's room, I stood in front of the mirror, awkwardly adjusting a wig. Long hair was a liability at the special school, where fights could break out unexpectedly, so I had never grown mine out. I removed my nose piercing. Then, I practiced mimicking Clara's usual expressions in the mirror, over and over. Her smile was genuinely beautiful. Why did they have to hurt someone like her? I desperately needed to understand why. Following the path Clara would take to school, I began to feel a fraction of the dread she must have experienced daily. Even from outside her classroom, I could hear loud chatter and laughter. Inside, Olivia was the center of attention, surrounded by her group of friends, talking loudly. Olivia, perched on a desk, had a mocking smirk on her face as she twirled a strand of her brown hair. When another student accidentally glanced her way, Olivia angrily slammed her textbook shut. "Watch yourself after school. Don't let me catch you looking at me again." Olivia's main friend, Jessica, who wore heavy makeup, looked pleased by the display of power. "You don't want to mess with Olivia," she announced loudly. "You don't know how she dealt with that bitch Clara. Beat her until she couldn't even speak." Bragging about their cruelty had apparently become a source of pride for them. Holding the breakfast wrap I had prepared, following the instructions from the group chat, I stepped into the classroom. My deliberately timid appearance immediately drew their attention, seeming to fuel their desire to torment. Olivia looked me up and down dismissively before turning to Jessica, pinching her nose dramatically. "Why does it suddenly smell so bad in here?" "Must be the stench of that slut." Their laughter echoed harshly in the room. Olivia jumped off the desk. "See, I told you she was faking being hurt that day. Now here she is back at school after harassing my mom for money. She probably enjoyed the attention. Looks like she needs another lesson. Let's beat her until she can't show her face here again." As they continued their banter, I ignored them and walked towards Clara's desk. I saw it was smeared with red ink and some other sticky, unknown substance. Jessica giggled, pointing at the chair. "Look, Clara, you didn't just leak, you had an accident too. Ha ha ha!" So this was how they treated my kind, gentle sister. I slowly looked up at them, my face devoid of any expression. There was a brief silence. Olivia tossed Jessica a $10 bill, looking slightly disappointed. "Dang, I lost the bet." We didn't make her cry this time. Jessica bent down to pick up the money. "Nice try, Olivia. Maybe if I kick her, she'll start crying." As she lifted her foot, intending to kick me, the group erupted in laughter again. What was merely a cruel joke to them constituted a daily nightmare for an innocent girl. Damn it, I thought. Just wait, there's more coming. Jessica grabbed the egg-filled pancake from my hand. Thinking it looked appetizing, she took a large bite. Her chubby face contorted as she chewed. "Ugh, why does the sausage taste so nasty today?" She opened the wrap to inspect it, revealing a pile of dark, foul-smelling dog feces hidden inside. "Ha! Fell for it." Her throat convulsed and she looked like she was about to vomit. Before she could, I grabbed her jaw firmly and smashed her face down onto the vomit-stained chair, once, twice, 3 times. The repeated impacts dazed her, and she reflexively swallowed the mouthful of feces and vomit. When she lifted her head, strands of her hair were coated in the disgusting mixture, and a horrific smell emanated from her open mouth. Everyone nearby instinctively backed away. "So gross!" Jessica finally burst into tears. Olivia cursed. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" She lunged, grabbing for my hair. Unfortunately for her, it was a wig, so pulling it didn't hurt me at all. But my own grip was strong. I seized Olivia's real hair with both hands and pulled upwards sharply, as if plucking feathers from a chicken. A clump of her hair came away in my hand. I pulled again rapidly using both hands. She screamed with each pull, and soon a noticeable bald patch began to appear on her scalp, with small beads of blood oozing from the damaged follicles. She touched her head, her hand coming away sticky and red. "What a racket," I muttered, picking up the metal bookshelf she had knocked over in her struggle and swinging it hard, hitting her squarely in the face. Smack! The sound of metal connecting with bone was loud and distinct. Silence fell over the classroom. The single blow made Olivia slump against the wall like a rag doll. A large lump quickly began to swell on her forehead. "Oh, right," I said conversationally. "Don't you love playing the parent? Call me Daddy." I pulled her hair again, forcing her to look up at me. "Never," she replied weakly, still trying to sound defiant. Ungrateful. I jabbed my knuckles hard into Olivia's throat, forcing her mouth open as she gasped for air. Then, I reached in and grabbed her tongue. She tried to resist, but every pull brought a sharp, tearing pain. Muffled cries and curses escaped her lips. She probably assumed Clara would never dare to fight back like this, but I am not Clara. Olivia's eyes widened in terror. I picked up the burned metal compass from her desk and stabbed it downwards, straight through her tongue. Blood streamed down her chin. Pulling the compass out dragged shreds of flesh with it, so I stabbed it through again. Manic laughter started bubbling up inside me. I felt myself slipping into that familiar state of detached frenzy. That's when the other girls finally reacted and rushed towards me. I let go of Olivia, whose tongue now lolled out, unable to retract. Pulling a small utility knife from my pocket, I smiled grimly at the approaching group. Need any help with a free vasectomy? No charge. The commotion stopped abruptly when someone shouted from the classroom doorway. What are you doing? A woman in her 40s holding a stack of books stood there. I recognized her as Clara's homeroom teacher, Miss Evans. I quickly hid the knife behind my back and put on an innocent expression. Teacher, we were just playing. But she glared at me, her face contorted with anger, pointing a finger straight at my nose. Playing? This is bullying. Don't think I didn't see what happened. The office cameras caught everything. I froze for a second. So, the teachers can see the recordings? Then why didn't you intervene when they were attacking Clara? A flicker of embarrassment crossed her face before she regained her authoritarian composure. Are you questioning me, your teacher? Where are your manners? Didn't your parents teach you any better? Don't blame me for looking down on students like you. Let me tell you, your parents probably don't earn more than a couple $1,000s a month combined. They're lucky if they make $10,000 a year. Olivia's mother makes more in 1 year than your mother could earn in 50. Do you really think you're on the same level? No way, you fool! Olivia, despite her swollen tongue, mumbled her agreement. Yeah, bastard from poor stock. Turning back to Olivia, I stabbed her arm with the compass again, making her crumple against the wall. Ironically, this same teacher had once been voted most beautiful teacher at the school. It seemed clear that bullying often starts or is enabled by teachers who subtly, or not so subtly, encourage it, with students then following their lead and targeting vulnerable classmates. This teacher was just as culpable as the bullies themselves. I chuckled coldly. You only make a few thousand a month too, Miss Evans. So, by your own logic, are you saying your standards aren't any good either? She ground her teeth in frustration. Defiant! Everyone, follow me to my office now. In the teacher's office, I was forced to stand beside the desk while Olivia, Jessica, and the other girls involved sprawled comfortably in chairs. Miss Evans slammed her hand on the desk. Clara, are you holding a grudge because I gave your scholarship grant to Olivia that one time? Why do you have to be so petty? I had almost forgotten about that incident. Olivia's family could easily afford luxury handbags worth thousands, yet Miss Evans, as the homeroom teacher, had chosen to give the needs-based scholarship intended for students like Clara to the wealthy local girl, allegedly in exchange for a nice dinner invitation from Olivia's mother. What an exemplary teacher. She took a sip of tea from her mug and looked at me with disdain. Clara, you need to understand the reality of the situation. Your parents are farmers who moved here for work, but Olivia's family are locals. This is their town. How can you possibly compare? What good will studying hard do you? After you graduate, you'll likely end up working for families like theirs anyway. This school is the closest you'll ever get to being on their level. You will always be worlds apart. The other girls listened, nodding in agreement, feeling completely justified in their actions. Some even started humming tunes or discussing their dinner plans for that evening. I stood my ground. If they hit me, I will fight back. It's only fair, isn't it? The teacher spat a tea leaf onto the floor near my feet. So, what if you got hit a few times? Are you missing a limb? Is anything broken? Why did you get hit and not someone else? You need to reflect on your own behavior. Oh, I replied flatly. That's a shame. I seem to have been born without the ability to self-reflect. Seeing that I wasn't intimidated, the teacher adopted a tone that was meant to sound wise and instructive. Clara, your teacher is teaching you an important life lesson today. You can't just take a beating from them for nothing. You need to let them get even. Otherwise, how can I explain this situation to everyone? Was she actually suggesting I should let them beat me up again right here in her office? It seemed that if a classroom environment was toxic, The homeroom teacher was often the primary source of that toxicity. Some of the girls understood her implication and moved to grab me, trying to pin me down. I've always possessed unusual physical strength and a high tolerance for pain, and so they struggled to hold me. Then, Miss Evans herself got involved, using her adult strength to hold my head down against the desk. "I can't stand students like you who cause trouble," she hissed. "Just because you got beat up a little, you make a big fuss, even calling the principal and getting me reprimanded. From now on, you will stand at the back of my classroom for every lesson." Olivia slurred through her injured mouth. "I'm gonna cut your tongue out, feed it to a dog." "Yeah," I shot back. "Let's see what you've got. I happen to have more than one knife on me." Miss Evans, looking increasingly vicious, held my head firmly with one hand while bracing herself against the desk with the other. I quickly pulled the short dagger I carried from my pocket and plunged it directly into the back of her hand, pinning it to the wooden desktop. A piercing scream echoed in the small office. Seizing the opportunity created by the shock, I slapped her hard across the face several times, knocking her glasses off and twisting her mouth. Someone kicked me a few times from behind, but it felt like dull aches. I turned and kicked back hard, connecting with someone's stomach. The person collapsed, gasping for breath. Olivia rallied the others. "We can't beat her one-on-one. Let's jump her together." They swarmed towards me again. Outnumbered, I yanked the dagger free from the teacher's hand and ducked under the desk for cover. When I emerged, they were closing in again. I grabbed the electric kettle boiling water on the teacher's desk and hurled it towards the group. The lid flew off, splashing scalding water onto several of them. They screamed like scalded pigs, jumping and crying out in pain. Miss Evans, despite her bleeding hand, seized the moment to call the police on her cell phone. "Officer, help! There's a murder attempt happening in my office." The escalating situation finally caught the principal's attention, too. Mr. Harrison waddled into the office, looking extremely annoyed with me, but putting on a welcoming smile for the arriving police officers. "Officer, thank goodness you're here. During my entire tenure as principal, this school has always been peaceful and orderly. We simply cannot allow one bad apple to spoil the bunch. We must not let bullying go unchecked." He then turned to the teacher. "Miss Evans, whose fault is this incident?" Miss Evans and her group of student supporters immediately ganged up, claiming I had started everything unprovoked and that they had never laid a hand on me. But the police officers weren't easily fooled. They could see the state of the office, the multiple injured students, the teacher with a dagger wound, and me seemingly unharmed but clearly the center of the conflict. They assessed the injuries on both sides, noted Olivia's aggressive demeanor even while injured, and saw the scuff marks from shoes on my clothes. They likely had a good sense of what had actually transpired. However, Miss Evans wouldn't let it go. "Officer," she insisted tearfully, "I was merely advising her not to bully her classmates just because she's academically bright. Who knew she would suddenly attack me with a knife like this? Ugh." "Enough," one of the officers said sharply, clearly disgusted by her attitude. "We're not fools. We will investigate this thoroughly." In the end, I was taken away by the police. As I left, I saw the principal looking satisfied. Olivia managed to slur out a final threat. "You just wait, I'll make you pay." I had indeed hurt several people, that much was true. But given my age, appearing as Clara, and the circumstances, they couldn't immediately do much to me legally. However, I wasn't the type to let things go easily either. I was released from juvenile detention after only 2 days. When I got out, I went straight to the school gate and waited. Soon, Miss Evans appeared, riding her electric scooter, smiling and greeting parents respectfully. She seemed like a kind, dedicated teacher to them. But the moment they were out of sight, she rolled her eyes and muttered, "Broke fools. It's such a drag having to talk to you." When she turned down a quiet alleyway, I stepped out directly in front of her scooter. She was already riding quite fast. I gave the handlebars a slight shove as she swerved, causing her to lose control completely. The scooter spun out and she crashed hard against the curb, knocking out a couple of her teeth in the fall. I immediately started acting injured myself, wailing loudly, "Teacher, teacher, why were you going so fast? You hit me. Hurry, take me to the hospital. If you don't, my wounds might heal too quickly." The more dramatically I acted, the more irritated she became. She spat out a mouthful of blood, her lip already swelling, and spoke with a noticeable lisp. Knowing she couldn't physically overpower me, she resorted to insults. You immoral brat! Don't think I don't know you did this on purpose. I'm calling the police. I grinned, glancing pointedly at her scooter. No license plate? And it looks like it goes faster than 25 miles per hour plus no pedals. This qualifies as a motor vehicle, right? Do you have a valid motorcycle license, Miss Evans? Of course she didn't. Those of us in the special school learned quite a bit about laws and loopholes. It often seemed like laws failed to effectively restrain ordinary people who thought they were above them. I pretended to dial the police on my phone. She glared at me, panic starting to show in her eyes. There are no cameras in this alley. Who's going to prove I hit you? She managed to get the scooter upright and tried to hobble away. I grabbed the now crooked handlebars. Did I say you could leave? I picked up a loose brick from the ground. No cameras? Great. That makes things much simpler. She backed away, fear replacing anger, trying to threaten me. What do you want? This is a law-abiding society. If you do something wrong, you will pay the price. Her words made sense in theory. I found a slightly larger rock. She was right. If bullies always face justice, I might almost believe her. Seeing the genuine terror in her eyes now, I swung the brick and smashed it against her nose. Blood spurted everywhere. Her nose seemed surprisingly fragile. It broke easily. Her pride completely shattered, she dropped to her knees, begging, I was wrong, Clara. Please don't hit me anymore. I'll die. I mimicked her earlier condescending tone. Why do I hit you and not others? You need to self-reflect. Why am I targeting you? She mumbled, because I was biased. I was wrong. Unimpressed, I swung the brick again, hitting the side of her head. She spun around from the impact, dizzy, before collapsing onto the dirty alley floor. Wasn't this the same person lecturing me about life just days ago? What a pushover. I grabbed the front of her shirt, my eyes empty of mercy, feeling only the cold resolve to end her threat. Seeing the brick rise again, she finally broke down completely, wailing, Stop! Stop! I admit it. I liked the money. I took bribes from Olivia's mother. I set you up on purpose. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have targeted you. Please, just let me go. My hand paused. Her head thumped back onto the ground as I released her shirt. Before leaving, I reminded her, by all means, call the police. Even if they lock me up again, when I get out, I'll come looking for you. My revenge doesn't just stop. Good people, bad people. It didn't matter to me anymore. The only people truly dangerous are those with nothing left to lose. There was no way she would call the police now. As I walked past a flower shop on my way back, I bought a bouquet to visit Clara. Her condition remained critical. The hospital had issued several critical condition notices during her stay. My mom's eyes were perpetually swollen and puffy from constant crying, and my dad looked utterly exhausted, his face gaunt, his beard grown long and untrimmed. When I showed up after my 2-day absence, my dad seemed to visibly relax for the first time. He rubbed his tired face with relief. Your sister is already like this, he said quietly. You can't get into more trouble. Let me handle this from here. You should go back to school. He stood up, looking determined to take charge. I gently held him back, looking him steadily in the eyes. Dad, I'm not good at taking care of people. And honestly, someone like me is probably just a burden on society anyway. But if I can get revenge for Clara, then maybe my existence has some worth. Besides, I added, adults like them, the ones with power and connections, they expect people like you to follow the rules. You can't really get to them that way. Tears welled up in my dad's eyes again. I asked him, did Olivia's mother ever call you? Dad shook his head. No. Since the incident, not a single word of sympathy or inquiry from her. Their silence seemed unnatural, devoid of the usual arrogance or defensiveness. I sensed something was wrong. Normally, someone like Olivia wouldn't back down so easily, especially not after I had publicly humiliated her and injured her. How could she just accept it quietly? There had to be a larger plan brewing beneath the surface, but for the sake of revenge, I was willing to walk into any trap. I knew that after school, Olivia and her core group often hung out at a nearby pool hall with some local thugs. Sure enough, when I went there, I found her. She held a pool cue in one hand and had a cigarette dangling from her lips, laughing and joking with a few rough-looking young men. I overheard her saying, "Remember Clara's face, all right? When the time comes, just drag her into the car. You guys don't need me to teach you what to do next, do you?" The group of men snickered, rubbing their hands together eagerly. I picked up a heavy billiard ball from a nearby table and, without hesitation, hurled it hard towards Olivia, hitting her squarely on the forehead. She cried out in pain, covering the spot, and looked up to see who had thrown it. The next second, the loud roar of motorcycles echoed from outside as a gang of bikers burst into the pool hall. They had brightly dyed hair, pink, green, blue, none of it natural black. A skinny guy, heavily tattooed with a dragon design, swaggered in. He wore tight pants, loafers, and a flashy belt buckle, with a cigarette dangling arrogantly from his lips. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. Olivia smirked, recognizing him. "Clara! Did you really think you could take me on alone? Today, nobody is getting out of here unharmed." She turned to the gang leader, seeking his approval. "Vince, didn't you have your eye on this chick Clara for a while? I told you she'd show up eventually. Enjoy yourselves. But don't forget to record everything for the girls in the group chat to see later." The man called Vince waved her off dismissively, and Olivia walked away looking satisfied. The men started approaching me with leering expressions and predatory intent. "Heard you're quite the wild one, huh?" one sneered. "Why don't you show us what you've got, sweetheart?" I knew Clara's ordeal wasn't just limited to Olivia and her school friends. These thugs were part of it too. This was my chance to deal with all of them at once. I scanned the room quickly, pretending to lower my guard, and even managed a small smile. When the closest man got within range, I kicked him with all my strength directly between his legs. Chaos erupted instantly. Using the confusion, I scrambled towards a back window I had noticed earlier, climbed out, and quickly disappeared into the maze of winding alleyways behind the pool hall. They soon lost sight of me. I realized then that Olivia hadn't retaliated immediately because she was planning to use sheer numbers and outside help against me. As I stepped out onto a main street, I made sure the video I had secretly recorded on my phone during the pool hall encounter was saved. Just then, my phone rang. It was Leo, the class leader from my group at the special school. "Maya, are you coming back for your treatment session today?" "Can't," I replied curtly. "Got some stuff to handle first." "What could possibly be more important than—" he started, then paused. "Wait, what kind of stuff?" "Taking on about a dozen people," I said casually. Leo immediately got excited. "Oh, man. And you didn't call me for backup? We can't exactly get out easily, you know." "Cut the crap, Leo. Just send me the location of a discreet internet cafe nearby." I never expected my reunion with my true misfit companions would happen there. Outside the cafe, Leo was waiting with Dr. Aries, Marco, and John. The only one missing from our usual group was Nina. "Where's Nina?" I asked. "She went completely nuts," Leo replied, his face grim. "Our ethics teacher called her mom a nut job for having a crazy kid like her. So Nina chopped off the teacher's head during lunch break and started kicking it around the cafeteria like a soccer ball. They took her away to a higher security facility. She'll probably be back in a couple of years, though." Leo himself wasn't much different. His father used to brutally beat his mother. One day, Leo snapped and stabbed his father to death with a kitchen knife. Because he was a minor and diagnosed with severe mental health issues, he ended up in our special school instead of prison. Dr. Aris was once a highly respected ophthalmologist. He dedicated his life to saving sight. One day, he came home to find his young daughter murdered by a disgruntled patient whose vision hadn't been restored to perfect 20/20ths after surgery. Dr. Aris subdued the killer and, in a psychotic break, dissected him. Marco earned the nickname Bus Judge after he violently slapped an elderly woman who was aggressively hogging multiple seats on a crowded bus, leaving her paralyzed. Her family tried to sue him for millions, but the case failed when Max was deemed mentally unstable and unfit to stand trial, ironically turning him into a minor internet sensation. And Nina, true to her nickname Crazy Beauty, had gone on a rampage against fellow scammers after being tricked into a prostitution ring, leaving two of them barely alive. They wanted to rely on numbers. I had numbers too, and my associates were all dangerously unpredictable. After I explained Clara's situation and the events so far, Dr. Eris was trembling with rage. I'm going to tear those bastards apart, piece by piece. I shook my head. Death is too easy for them, Doctor. I want them to suffer, to live with the consequences, just like Clara has to. For a group of people often labeled as unstable, we managed to devise a remarkably coherent plan. Leo used his tech skills to track Olivia and Vince's group for a couple of days, finally getting a solid lead. Olivia was treating Vince and his gang to a hot pot dinner, ostensibly to apologize for Vince getting injured during the pool hall incident. She had even dragged along a few of her reluctant classmates for backup, and to further intimidate them. I walked into the noisy hot pot restaurant with Nina, who had unexpectedly been released early and rejoined us, on my arm. A quick glance around confirmed Leo's information. Olivia was at a large table, forcing her classmates to drink alcohol. It's a blessing for you girls to be associated with Vince, she was saying loudly. He'll watch over you from now on. If any of you dare to disobey him, you'll end up just like Clara. Her intentions were menacingly clear. As soon as we sat down at a nearby table, their eyes locked onto us. Olivia shot up from her seat. I've been looking everywhere for you, and you still dared to just walk in here? Vince, however, was immediately captivated by Nina's alluring appearance and provocative gaze. He gestured for Olivia to shut up and then wobbled over to our table, holding a beer bottle. Hey, gorgeous, he slurred. How about a drink with me? It would be rude to refuse. Nina ignored him completely, looking bored. What's with the high and mighty act? Vince sneered, clearly offended. From the look on your face, I can tell you're no angel either. Olivia eagerly grabbed another beer bottle, ready to assist Vince in intimidating us. Seeing the potential for violence, Olivia's classmates seized the opportunity to quietly slip away from the table and leave the restaurant. As Olivia approached Nina with the bottle raised, ready to smash it over her head, I stood up and caught her wrist firmly. She tried to pull back reflexively, but I just smiled widely. Olivia, Vince, I realize now I was ignorant before. You guys are the big shots around here. We outsiders didn't know our place. My mistake. Seeing me seemingly back down, the hidden fear in Olivia's eyes vanished, replaced by a smug, gloating expression. Now you finally know better? Well, it's too late. I laughed lightly and continued my explanation. Okay, look, call those classmates who were here earlier back. Tell them I'll treat everyone tonight to make up for my previous disrespect. Olivia, having lost face because of my earlier actions, was eager to reassert her dominance. She quickly made the calls. Hurry up and get back here. Whoever doesn't come, I'll deal with them later. Let everyone know. The 17 beauties need to come see Clara call me daddy. If you don't show up, you're opposing me. Under Olivia's pressure, all the girls showed up again within 15 minutes. Vince was already annoyed about his party being disrupted, and Olivia's gloating wasn't helping his mood. Nina leaned towards him suggestively. Bro, see that dark alley across the street? How about we all continue the party over there? More private. Vince's eyes lit up with malicious intent. Oh, so we're going to have a whole audience for the fun? Exciting. I love it. No one objected, and the entire group, Vince, his thugs, Olivia, Jessica, and the other 15 girls, moved towards the alley. Olivia followed closely, eager to reclaim her status, whispering smugly to me, You really think sucking up like this means I'll spare you, slut? Maybe if you lick my shoes clean, I might consider going easy on you. Nina and I exchanged glances, wrinkling our noses in disgust. As the group gathered in the dimly lit alley, people started noticing a strange smell. What's that strong odor? Someone asked. It smells like a weird mix of alcohol and almonds. Soon, Olivia was staggering, holding her head, looking confused. A mild, delusion-inducing aerosol agent like this was child's play for Dr. Eris to synthesize. The group retained some awareness but lacked the physical strength or coordination to resist effectively. That's when Leo, Dr. Eris, and Marco stepped out from the deeper shadows, appearing like dark figures emerging from the night. With a tone that held a hint of madness, Leo said, Well, well, little lab rats, delivered right to our doorstep. Now, let's think about how we should play with them. Olivia, leaning against the alley wall for support, pointed a trembling finger at me, her voice filled with venom despite her weakened state. Clara, Maya, whoever you are, if you dare touch me, my parents are very well connected. Your whole family won't even know what hit them. Oh, is that right? I replied calmly. I have to admit, I'm rather curious to see how I might die. I slowly approached her, pulling out a handful of sharp wooden toothpicks I had pocketed from the hot pot restaurant. Olivia, isn't bullying your favorite pastime? Nina understood my intention immediately and grabbed Olivia's hand, stretching out her palm. Olivia had recently gotten elaborate manicures. Her 10 fingers looked quite striking. She struggled weakly, fear finally evident in her eyes. What? What are you going to do? I slowly, deliberately, wedged 10 toothpicks deep under the nail beds of each of her fingers. Ever tear apart chicken feet? I asked conversationally. With that, I slammed her hand hard against the rough brick wall. A blood-curdling scream pierced the night air. I kicked her sharply in the stomach, cutting off the scream mid-shriek. The toothpicks were wedged deeply, and before she could fully process the pain, I used the leverage to pry off each of her fingernails one by one. My hand! Leo, irritated by her renewed screaming, pressed a dirty rag firmly against her mouth. After all 10 fingernails were ripped away, Olivia passed out from the shock and pain, her hands curled tightly like claws, the raw red nail beds exposed, her body trembling uncontrollably. Olivia's most loyal follower, Jessica, was paralyzed with fear. Don't mess with me, she stammered. I grabbed the loose flesh on her cheek. Wasn't it you who enjoyed slapping my sister's face with a shoe? It was only then that they seemed to fully realize. You're not Clara. I had no intention of letting any of them off easily. I dragged one of the girls who usually flattered Jessica over to Dr. Eris, who dunked her head in a bucket of cold water to ensure she was fully awake. Slap each other, I instructed Jessica and the other girl. Whoever draws blood first gets spared from further hitting. The other girl hesitated. Sis, I won't really hit you hard. She gave Jessica a tentative, half-hearted slap. It barely made a sound. But Jessica, perhaps fueled by fear and adrenaline, swung back with full force, slapping the other girl so hard it sounded like a whip crack. No way! I barely touched you and you hit me like that, you bitch! The other girl, holding her stinging face in disbelief, clenched her fist and punched Jessica squarely in the nose. Jessica's face seemed to contort instantly. The two girls, once seemingly close friends within the bullying circle, were now fiercely attacking each other, determined to inflict pain to save themselves, ending up tangled in a messy fight on the ground. Nina clutched her chest, looking genuinely troubled. Ugh, I'm really no good at all this violent stuff, she sighed dramatically. So, let's just keep it simple. She grabbed another girl, one I specifically remembered calling Clara a slut in the group chat, and pulled her towards the entrance of a nearby public restroom. It's really unfortunate for you, Nina said sweetly. Be a good sport now. I promise I'll be gentle. She forced the girl to cover the faucet opening with her mouth and then turned the tap on full blast. Under the high-pressure rush of cold water, the girl choked and coughed violently. Nina smiled sweetly again, took a decorative hairpin from her hair, and jabbed it sharply into the girl's back. Ah, let go again and who knows where I'll stab you next, Nina warned. The girl quickly clamped her mouth back over the faucet. Water sprayed from the sides of her mouth, but most of it was forced down her throat under the pressure. Soon, her belly began to distend unnaturally, becoming larger than a pregnant woman's. Nina blew on her small, pink-painted fist as if preparing, then punched the girl's swollen belly hard. Water erupted from the girl's mouth like a fountain, along with yellowish bile. Talk trash again, Nina cooed, and next time it'll be something much nastier flowing into your mouth. Dr. Eris was more methodical, using his anatomical knowledge to inflict pain precisely, stabbing victims in non-lethal but extremely painful spots, ensuring maximum agony while preventing escape or loss of consciousness. As for Vince, Olivia's main backer and the leader of the thugs, he was already cowering in a corner, trembling with fear. You love to assault women and film it, don't you? Marco, who had a knack for capturing dramatic moments, turned on his phone camera. Dr. Aris donned a pair of surgical gloves he carried, produced a scalpel, and bowed slightly with mock professionalism. "For the sake of societal harmony," he announced calmly, "today I shall be performing a live neutering." There, in the grimy corner of the alleyway, the skinny thug with the dragon tattoo was surgically castrated on the spot. Dr. Aris then calmly stuffed the removed parts into Vince's own mouth. "Who knows how many people this thing has hurt," Dr. Aris remarked clinically. "Consider this a public service." In the end, all of them, Olivia, Jessica, the other 15 girls, Vince, and his remaining thugs, were sent to the hospital. None were conscious upon arrival. Even if they eventually recovered physically, their lives would likely be irrevocably damaged. Perhaps no better than the future Clara faced. Now, wasn't that a fitting apology? Predictably, their parents went ballistic. They demanded immediate arrests and severe jail time for the perpetrators. My dad's phone was bombarded with angry calls and threats, and he turned to me with worried eyes. But I remained emotionless. This time, we ignored their calls, offering no response whatsoever. However, I underestimated their hypocrisy and shamelessness. When the same thing happened to Clara, they had dismissed it as no big deal. Now that it was their children, it was suddenly the end of the world. They gathered at the hospital, blocking the entrance to Clara's room, accompanied by Principal Harrison. They wailed and cried, demanding justice, completely ignoring the fact that their children's actions were the root cause of the entire situation. The principal, attempting to appease the angry parents, readily agreed to expel Clara, or rather me, as they still thought I was her, from the school. Ignoring police orders to remain calm, they tried to barge into Clara's room, shouting that she should pay with her life, some even trying to physically remove her hospital bed. Olivia's mother was on the phone, loudly threatening to raze this place to the ground. During the peak of their chaotic frenzy, I stood up calmly. "It wasn't Clara who hurt your children," I announced clearly. "It was me." From the crowd of onlookers, Leo, Dr. Aris, and Nina stepped forward to stand beside me. "Us too," Leo added. "Your daughters were planning to further humiliate and assault our friend. We simply defended ourselves and her." Jessica's father tried to lunge at me but was held back by the police officers present. "You're lying," he shouted. "Our kids would never cause trouble." I laughed coldly. "When your children brutally assaulted my sister, my father called each and every one of you. You didn't care then. Some of you even encouraged it. If you won't take responsibility for parenting your children, then society will have to teach them a lesson. Let's see if society shows them any leniency now." Finishing my statement, I started laughing again, louder and louder, unable to contain the bitter irony. The police officers quickly noticed my erratic behavior and began looking into our backgrounds more closely. Right on cue, I pulled out my phone and played the video recordings I had taken, showing them clearly to everyone present, the police, the parents, the hospital staff. Whether I was at the pool hall or the hot pot restaurant, I had made sure the recording feature was active beforehand. "Officer," I said, my voice steady again, "these clips prove they were actively planning further harm and looking for trouble. Yesterday's incident was, honestly, just self-defense." The audio was crystal clear, with Olivia's voice being particularly damning. "Vince, didn't you have your eye on Clara? I told you she'd come. Enjoy yourselves. Remember to send the videos to the group for a laugh. And being with Vince is a privilege. Refuse, and you'll end up like Emma." The crowd of onlookers began murmuring amongst themselves. "Running with the wrong crowd. These kids are learning to gang up and bully classmates. Getting stabbed doesn't seem like enough punishment for planning something like that. I can't believe the school has such poor standards. Imagine if these other people hadn't been there yesterday. What would have happened to those poor students?" Despite the clear evidence of their children's wrongdoing, some parents remained defiant, pointing fingers at us. "I don't care about your self-defense excuses. Just because you might be underage doesn't mean you get a free pass. They look older than 12. I want them locked up forever." A police sergeant cut them off. "Sorry to interrupt, ma'am, sir, but preliminary checks indicate that these individuals recently absconded from a specialized educational facility, one that treats patients with significant mental health challenges." Please cooperate with our ongoing investigation. The mention of mental patients left the aggressive parents momentarily stunned. Leo smirked and pulled out official-looking documents detailing his diagnosed mental illnesses. If a bully under 12 years old bears no legal responsibility for their actions, he asked rhetorically, then why should we, as diagnosed mentally ill individuals, be held fully accountable? The surrounding crowd erupted in debate again. Mentally ill folks defending themselves? That's a new one. If this was my daughter they planned to attack, I'd be out for blood too, mental illness or not, even if it meant jail time. Public opinion was clearly shifting away from the parents of the bullies, leaving them flustered and unsure how to react. Linda's mother, however, stepped forward, regaining her composure. Don't think you'll dodge justice that easily. I have connections. These documents can be invalidated. I feigned sudden realization. Oh, I almost forgot. No wonder you turn a blind eye to your daughter's horrific bullying. Your son once raped a classmate, didn't he? You managed to shut down the investigation with money, spread vicious rumors about the victim, and ultimately forced the poor girl into committing suicide. And you faced absolutely no consequences for any of it. Repeat offenders certainly learn to be bold, don't they? Linda's mother looked momentarily flustered, but quickly regained her confidence, likely believing this situation could be managed just like the previous one. But Marco, standing off to the side, had been quietly live-streaming the entire confrontation. The chat feed on his phone was exploding with angry comments, with viewer counts exceeding 100,000. People were tagging government officials and news outlets relentlessly. I glanced over at Principal Harrison, who was trying his best to remain inconspicuous. "Principal," I called out loudly, "how does it feel cheating on your wife with a widow?" He flinched as if struck, his eyes wide with panic. "What nonsense are you spouting? I have always maintained a clean record. Don't you dare defame me." It's often the ones who protest their righteousness the loudest who are guiltier than the openly corrupt. I pulled out my phone again and displayed clear photos of him and Olivia's mother kissing passionately in a car. "Next time, perhaps you should conduct your affairs inside a hotel room. I got the whole sequence on camera." No wonder he was always defending Olivia. Perhaps he felt like he was playing the role of a protective father figure. The principal, desperate now, protested weakly, "It wasn't me. She came on to me. I didn't do anything." Just then, a woman in an apron pushed through the crowd looking furious. "I slave away cooking and cleaning at home," she screamed, "and you're out here fooling around with a widow?" Bingo. Alerting her beforehand had been perfect timing. In a flash, she brandished a kitchen knife she must have brought from home and lunged directly at the principal. Chaos erupted in the hospital corridor. Despite police officers attempting to intervene, she managed to stab him deeply in the stomach before being subdued. He collapsed, wailing in agony as his intestines started spilling out. He was quickly carted off towards emergency surgery, facing a definite future reliant on a colostomy bag. Leo, Dr. Aris, Marco, and I all agreed to cooperate fully with the police investigation. As we were being led away, Leo patted my shoulder reassuringly. "Don't worry, Maya. Jail, or whatever facility they send us to, is just another hangout. The folks there have tons of interesting things to teach you, and they always have sweet words to say. Honestly, I kind of love it there." I knew I would likely be joining them soon myself. With Olivia's mother arrested and her affair exposed and the principal incapacitated, Olivia's protection evaporated. The public outrage fueled by the live stream led to intense scrutiny. Her family's past crimes were brought to light and reinvestigated. Her brother's rape case was reopened, and he was finally convicted and sent to prison. The family's wealth, likely built on shady dealings, was seized, leading to bankruptcy. Olivia's mother, unable to cope with the sudden downfall and public disgrace, attempted to fake a suicide jump from her high-rise apartment building to gain sympathy. But she slipped accidentally, leading to a real fall from the 18th floor. Unfortunately, Olivia wouldn't be able to witness any of this. Her injuries, combined with the trauma, left her bedridden for life. Before the police officially took me into custody, I received some good news from my father. Clara had woken up and was showing positive signs of recovery. The doctors were now optimistic that she might not even need a permanent colostomy bag. I lost track of how long we were held in observation and processing. Just as I was mentally preparing for a longer stay in a secure facility, they transported all of us, Leo, Dr. Aris, Marco, and me, back to the special school in a police van. It seemed our unique circumstances, combined with the public pressure and perhaps some behind the scenes maneuvering related to Dr. Aris, had resulted in this outcome. Our new homeroom teacher at the school seemed genuinely kind and welcoming. "Welcome back, students," she said with a warm smile. "What on earth is going on?" I muttered under my breath. Dr. Aris chuckled beside me. "Nothing much," he said lightly. "I just happened to finalize an invention disclosure for a patent, potentially worth millions to the country while we were detained. That seemed to expedite our return here." He shrugged. "Besides, this school suits us better. We can make crafts, learn about the law. It's arguably safer for everyone than us being outside." We all gave him a thumbs up. Impressive. As I turned to head toward the dormitory building, a small group of figures near the outer gate caught my eye. My mom and dad stood there, waiting patiently. In front of them was a wheelchair. Sitting in it, looking frail but with a small, gentle smile on her face, was Clara. She slowly opened her hand, revealing the small framed butterfly specimen I had made for her what felt like a lifetime ago.